Okay, so here we are on the third day of our camp out, Tuesday.
Yep.
And, you know, yesterday we went and Tom told us his story down at his special place. And he was talking about the whistles that, the whistle that you were mentioning yesterday. Okay, so last night, the first couple nights, you know, we're pretty darn quiet around here. Last night, we were sitting around the fire. There was just a few of us here having a discussion. And I think Larry and I were the last two to go to bed. And he headed that way, went over to the tent. And I went into the house for a minute and came back out, not more than a couple of minutes. And I went over to my tent where I go in and I just wrap up and sit there and listen for as long as I can stay awake. Well, I got myself tucked into my bed and I sat there and checked the time on my iPod. It was like 5 minutes after 1 at that point. And within a few seconds, I heard a very loud, clear, and distinct from this direction, just like Tom had been describing earlier in the day. So my first thought was that Larry and Sandy had, you know, he had just gone to bed too, that they were having a discussion over this whistle they had whistled themselves because, within a few seconds of hearing that whistle, I thought I heard voices and I could hear somebody out here moving around. I could hear footsteps, shuffling, and at first I'm thinking, okay, well maybe that was just you guys that had whistled and you were talking and you were having a conversation, maybe you were fixing something in your tent, because there was quite a bit of vocals that I was hearing that sounded like voices and a lot of movement out here. So I sat in there and I listened to this, and I got up this morning and I asked Larry about what happened when you went to bed. So you guys, what did you do when you go to bed?
Well, I went to bed basically just.
Oh, sorry.
In all innocence, she asked.
What did you guys?
Well,
I'm trying to lead up to what you told me this morning, so.
I crawled in under the sleeping bags and everything, and I was still pretty much awake. And I'm like, I'm going to just sit here and listen and keep my eyes open and see if I can see shadows or anything on the tent, because I was getting a good glow from the moon coming into the tent. So if anything would walk by my tent, I would see it.
And did you hear anything?
I did. I heard someone walk. It was a person walking around behind my tent, and I just thought that it was either you or Pat, who was also up with us.
Did you hear a whistle?
No, I did not.
You did not hear a whistle. And Sandy, you said when he came in, the discussion, tell me about what kind of discussion you had when he came in.
It was really brief. I think I said hi or something like that, and I asked if you wanted the light on, and he said no.
But you couldn't have heard that because we were whispering. We weren't actually talking.
We weren't, just really low. And then we said goodnight, and he got in bed, and that was that.
And that was it. You guys didn't have any more discussion in the next 10, 15 minutes after that?
No.
Nothing.
Where's your tent? Which one's your tent?
The green one over there.
But you know,
and
now that you say that, I heard something moving around behind my tent, and it woke me up.
Oh, okay.
And it sounded like
What time was it?
You know, I don't know. I was sleeping, but it might have been. I don't think I was sleeping very long, but it sounded like a footprint, and it was hitting my canvas that's underneath my tent, and it would walk forward, and then it would turn around and walk backward.
Oh.
And then it walked forward, and it didn't sound like little feet.
Like it was approaching and then backing up and approaching?
It was walking back and forth behind my tent.
Okay, and that's your tent that's right there next to mine.
And it scared me a little bit.
Oh.
And I said, you know why you're here? And I wanted to look out the window, but I was a little too intimidated. But then it stopped.
Okay.
And it went away. But it definitely was heavy footsteps. It wasn't little.
Okay. This morning when I discussed this with Larry, he had mentioned that, Pat, you had come out and put a recorder out?
No, the recorder was there when we went on the road trip yesterday.
Oh, okay.
Kristen just decided to leave it all night because it runs for 40 hours.
So after you went to bed last night, you didn't come back out?
Me?
Yeah.
No, after I left you and Larry at the fire, I went to the truck to get some gifting food to put out. So I walked it out front and put it in a chair. And before I did that, I did walk behind his tent to see if that red light was still on for the recorder, just checking it.
Okay, was that while we were still out here? Or was that after we had gone to bed?
That was after you had gone to bed.
Okay, so you did walk back through here.
I did.
And did you hear any kind of a whistle?
No.
No.
And I
Okay.
didn't talk to anybody at all.
And you didn't.
I never said a word.
You didn't speak
And
anything.
I noticed when I went in to go to the bathroom before I went to bed, it was 1:15.
Okay.
So I went to bed at 1:15, and nobody was left out here at the time. I never heard the whistle.
Okay. And Sandy and I were just discussing this, that if you had come back out, for me to be able to hear your footsteps from that green tent over there to back on the other side of the house and the other side of their tent would have been really difficult for me to hear just the sound of somebody walking.
Especially because I have sandals on, and I was probably just tiptoeing around. You know,
Yeah,
It
trying not
wasn't
to
in my
wake
heavy
people
foot.
up.
I didn't want to wake
Yeah.
anybody up.
So there was nobody out here having any kind of conversation, discussing anything, moving anything around.
I looked around, and I says, "Oh, those two had gone to bed, and you were the last two."
Okay.
And Tristan had gone to bed way before me, a couple hours.
Yeah.
At around 11, I'd say. You guys are still up talking.
Yeah.
I,
So-
I was up at 1:30 and I had gone outside my RV because my propane is not working on my refrigerator. So I took the back of my refrigerator off outside, and so this was between 1 and 1:30 I was doing this. Took the cover off, couldn't figure anything out, put the cover back on, just put it on batteries. But and I walked around all out here and went out and just talked.
Okay.
And said thank you for the lovely day. Thank you. You know, I said a thank you.
So you were way out in that direction.
I was out in that way, and I did have my flashlight on, and
Okay.
I told him I was flashing the light, just because. I said I apologize if I'm irritating anybody. I don't have night eyes like you do, and if anybody's out there, I'll shut it right off. If I see your eyes, I'll shut it right off. I was trying to be respectful, but let them know that I was there if they wanted to
Okay.
come out or say anything. So I just shut the flashlight off when I didn't see anything, and then I just stayed out there for just a little bit, and then I went to bed.
And what time were you out there?
That was around between 1:15 and 1:30, because when I finally went to bed, it was 1:30. I always check my,
Okay.
yeah.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
I wasn't back in here at all. I stayed entirely up there.
Okay.
I was in and out of my motorhome a couple of times, and there was a little bit of noise up there.
So
but
for me to hear you talking out in that field beyond your motorhome, which is on the other side of this building, from my tent over here, would have been difficult.
It's 100 yards across there.
And I was up closer to the driveway on the other side because I was trying deliberately to stay away from the tents.
Yeah, that's,
Okay.
that's 200 yards at least from
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. Okay. Right on.
But I didn't hear anything. I shut when I didn't catch any lights. I just wanted to see if I could catch any reflections first of all. And I didn't catch anything, so I shut the light off because it was so bright from the moon. And I just stayed out there for a little bit and was quiet after I, said, some acknowledgments to them and thanked them for a lovely day and thanked them for being in their home. And, but I sat and listened for for a few minutes and didn't hear a peep.
Wow. Okay. Because when I got into my bunk and looked at the clock, it was 1:05, and it was within 30 seconds of that probably that I heard that very distinct whistle, and within another probably 30 seconds the talking started, and the movement, and from where I was, it sounded very distinctly right out in here, right in this area in front of the cabin. That's why I thought maybe it was coming from your tent. And then it occurred to me that maybe that whistle was some kind of a warning that, okay, somebody's come back out again, and that was who was talking that I had heard. So that's just
Maybe it was an all clear.
that everybody's gone to bed now. But then maybe the whistle was because you had come back out over there, and somebody came outside, so there was a whistle.
Yeah, because I didn't see anybody. I kind of looked over here a little bit, but I just wasn't looking. I was just trying to get my propane back up. Losing all my food.
Wow.
But no, I didn't see anything.
I had gas problems last night too, but it wasn't propane.
Were you whistling?
Oh, goodness.
That's much too personal.
Sorry, Bob was hanging around camp, and I just picked up on his wind, both of you.
Barb, did you hear footsteps?
Yes, I did. All around this area over in here and around Sandy's tent, I could hear somebody moving around. That's why I thought you guys had gotten up. And also last night while we were sitting here, we had spotted a skunk over by the porch over here. So it also occurred to me that maybe you guys were in your tent discussing the skunk was back or something. Because I couldn't make out any words and I couldn't identify any voices, but it was very distinctly the sound of talking.
I thought it was pretty well established between us that that was you walking behind the tent.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
we know what that
Okay.
what that occurrence was.
Okay, so that was probably you. Okay.
But there's no way what you heard behind our tent and your tent would be heard. So if it was walking through here, something was walking through
It was walking behind our tent.
your tent.
Okay, well, let's do a little experiment. I'm just going to go sit in my tent,
And you go walk behind
and
our tent.
we can have Sandy, like, out here in the middle relaying messages and say, okay, she's walking now. And I'll see if I can hear the sound of you walk up. Just repeat what you did, and I'll see if we can hear that. And then if you don't mind going back over and rattling your propane tank while I'm in here, and let's see if I can hear that.
Okay.
Okay?
There you go climb in bed.
Yeah.
That was more a slamming sound. That wasn't that was a real distinct metallic sound.
You know, I think I did hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that came from back this way.
Yeah, that was back
Yeah,
over here.
okay, I did hear that.
Keep it as brief as I could.
I like your theory. They heard her working over there, and they were letting others know that somebody was up.
Yeah, because it was just one, and it was exactly the way you guys described yesterday. That was exactly what it was.
Well,
All right.
Mine was like a pace.
Yeah, I
pacing.
didn't hear it either, and I was
Because
laying there
your tent-
listening.
Yeah, 'cause I
And
I
it
could hear
came
it
from
go
the
this
direction
way,
of your
turn around, and
tent.
come back this way.
So,
But you were
And
sleeping.
did you say it hit your tent or the
was
spine?
No, you were
I
snoring.
have
No,
You snoring.
It should be a tennis court.
I heard her walking on that.
Time lapse.
Bob was not good for Sandy.
no. All right, well, let's test this and see how well it works, what I can hear from in there, if it's anything that's the same. Okay, I am now in my tent, and I'm sitting here in my bunk where I was sitting last night, and we're going to see what it sounds like out there, if I can hear Pat walking. Okay, ready when you are, Sandy. I can't hear a thing.
We can't hear her either.
Yep, that's what I heard. Okay, so now we have established that I cannot hear Pat walking. Even the people outside cannot hear Pat walking, but I could very clearly hear the whistle that was, and it sounded exactly like that. And right now Nancy is heading over to her motorhome where she was last night, and she's going to recreate the sounds that she was making, and I'm going to see if I can hear that in here.
Did you hear that?
Yes, I could hear that.
Okay. Thank you. She's talking, Barb.
I cannot hear a thing.
No, you can't hear. We can't even hear.
Stay there, Barb. Sandy and I will.
Okay, we're gonna go into our tent, Barbie.
Okay.
Ready?
Ready.
Action.
I did not.
No, the creek made more noise than that.
Yep. Okay.
Thank
We've
you.
fairly well ruled out all of ourselves for talking and whistling. And there's just no way that I could have heard Pat. No way at all. And there was very distinct movement out here. Somebody was moving, walking, shuffling, mumbled talking. And another thing, when I was in there and you were directing Nancy, I could very easily tell that was your voice. And I did not recognize any of the sound. There was no words or anything that I could recognize other than it was the mumbling of two voices that were having discussion about something. And I didn't recognize any voice. And it was very easy to tell it was you when you were out here talking. So, cool. Yeah, can't wait to see what's going to happen
What's
tonight.
funny is that Sandy put that tent up, that little tent for the shower.
Oh, yeah?
Do it.
Not Sandy, I mean Pat.
Oh.
Yesterday, I helped her put it up yesterday, and I noticed this morning that it's on its side.
Yeah, I saw that too. I thought maybe you guys were working on it some more or something.
No, in fact, Pat thought it blew over, but Tristan said when he went out there, bottom has those little sticks, you know, that keeps it. They were taken out of the bottom and they were laying over to the side.
Really?
Really?
Yep.
He thought the tent had been abandoned this morning. That's what he said when he came in. Did you guys see that abandoned tent out back? I was like, there's an old tent out there? He thought it was an old tent. He didn't know it was his mom's even.
Oh, really?
Pat said, she was, I think the wind blew it, but I said the wind wouldn't blow those things out.
And
No,
were all the poles right together in the same pile?
No. They were like just tossed to the side.
This is new information.
But the tent was a little ways away.
Wow.
If they had been all stacked together, then we really would have had something.
Well, even just having them removed and tossed to the
Well,
side.
it wasn't that windy.
No.
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 It
No.
wasn't windy at all.
And I think
No.
But
if
it
anything,
was dark when we got back last night, and
Yeah.
it had been windy while we
Right.
were gone.
Yeah.
And it did
But
rain
still, that's
hard.
not going to remove those bottom
Because
poles.
my tarp on my truck
Yeah, that's
was,
what I thought.
was
Yeah, it's
askew,
not-
and I had to fix that.
That's not going
And
to
it did
affect
blow-
those poles. Yeah.
And my motorhome cover was
Yeah,
down
they're
a little
out.
bit. I had to
Right.
put it back up and tighten it. So we might have had some wind in the
Well,
can.
Sandy and
There
I
was a
actually
thunderstorm.
got here right at the arrival of the thunderstorm, and we were here for the duration of it.
yeah.
There wasn't that much wind with it.
Yeah, where we were up there was no wind associated with
Yeah.
But now
the
if
drops
anything
we had.
rolled in after that, we don't
Yeah.
obviously no one was
Right.
here,
Yeah.
and we know they had other rain because we had rain when we were up on the ridge.
Well, you know,
Check
Sandy
my
and I
truck.
have
Truck
gone
was squash
through
prints,
trying to
and
put
there
one of
was
those
a
tents
night.
together. It's
Sorry.
not easy. We have video footage of that from a prior
It's always-
camp out
it's
that
always step 3, Barbie. It's all about
step
step
3
3.
trying to put together one of those tents. Yeah, so you know, once you got those little poles down there in place,
Yeah.
it takes a little effort to get them out. They're not just going to fall out from being blown over in a breeze. Yeah, that's pretty neat.
Yeah, they might slip a little, but they'd still be in there.
Yeah.
He said they were tossed.
Raindrop.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, if it was just blown over and they fell out, they'd kind of still be by the tent in that general area, not thrown this way and thrown that way and thrown that. You know, it's like a kid come up and said, "Hey,
What's this?
you know," and
Yeah.
they went and threw it that way, and
And went,
You
oh, we
know.
better not do this anymore. Let's
That's
leave it."
interesting. That's interesting.
it
But,
is.
Very
but
cool.
the pacing I heard was really distinctive, and it was like almost like I thought, why are they pacing behind my tent?
Well, Pat never went behind your tent. She walked over there, but she didn't walk behind
No.
over there.
No,
She wouldn't have walked on your tent thing anyway. I
no,
wouldn't have
and it was heavier than that. I don't think she'd be that heavy.
Yeah, I don't think she could make the.
Heavy is not in her vocabulary.
No, unless it's occurring, unless you're referring to
Yeah,
her
it
foot.
wasn't-
Yeah.
Tom said something.
Okay, sorry, lead foot.
Yes, light body, lead foot.
Tom said something about, you can tell the difference between a four-legged and a two-legged creature. And I definitely said this was two-legged. I thought it was a person. Well, I had told myself last night before I went to bed that if a Sasquatch was by my tent, to wake myself up, because I tend to sleep through everything. Well, I was sound asleep, and I woke up instantly, and I heard somebody walking behind my tent. And my cot is right here along the wall of this here, so my ear is right there, and there's this bit of tarp that I had put under, and that's what I heard, and I'm going to demonstrate what I heard.
Okay.
First I thought it was a person, but then it hit me that it was probably a Sasquatch, but it sounded like a person walking. And
Okay.
I heard that, and then I heard that, and then I heard it a third time. And I thought, oh my God, he's pacing behind my tent. and I was really scared at first, but then I said, this is what you're here for. And I thought about unzipping the window to look, but I didn't do that. But then it stopped. And then I went back to sleep.
That was it, huh?
That was it. But what I really think, after hearing all the activity last night that went on, that they were walking, I think there were 3 of them.
Okay.
There might have been more, because when I woke up, I immediately heard a step on that tarp.
So you think maybe there was another step before
There
that
might
that
have been
actually
another
woke
step
you up?
That woke me up.
Okay.
And
So like instead of what you had originally thought was maybe they were coming back and forth, step on it this way, step on it that way, step
Right.
on it this way. You think there were 3 or more individuals went through here
Right. they
and
all
each stepped on it.
Yeah, I initially just thought it must be somebody pacing back there. But now that I think about it, it probably was more than one, and they were just taking off out
Just
this
going
way.
back that way.
Yeah, and they were cutting between your and my tent.
Wow. And through right between the edge of the tall
Right.
grass right
I
here.
did come out. You try to look for some footprints, but it's just not.
Yeah. Well, that's really interesting, especially that they would come that close when you were right there. I'm sure they knew you were right inside.
Yeah.
And it's a good possibility that they did that specifically for your benefit. That, you know, it's like, oh, let's all, you know, just, okay, we're headed out. Let's give her a little thrill and crunch. Yeah, right
That's
on.
pretty darn close. You can see even my cot's kind of poking.
Yeah, oh yeah,
That's my cot.
that's your cot right there.
That's my
Yeah,
cot.
right on. That's
I
amazing.
could've reached out and touched him.
Coulda.
Next time I will.
Or maybe the next time they'll reach out and touch you.
Maybe.
You know, on my tent back here, you know, the rain fly kind of pulls out on the sides. And when I'm sitting in my cot, I can look out in this direction and I can just see, you know, the ground out toward the fire pit. And on this side, my cot's also on this side. I can look right down through there and I can see the ground. And several times, you know, the moonlight was strong enough that I could see the ground pretty well outside. And I'd look out there, you know, through there. And it's like, oh, I want to see a foot go by. And then I was thinking to myself, it would be so cool to see a little face pop up under that fly and smile at me. And I just got all tingly thinking about that smile. And then I thought, well, if they were going to do that, I'd probably like see a hand first. And then I thought, well, that might freak me out.
Yes.
I don't know why that.
It
The
is a
idea
little
of the
freaky.
hand freaks me out more than the face, but
Well, it is a little. When you initially think it's a person, that's a little freaky. But then when you stop to think about, because it was perfectly quiet, nobody was up, that it was a Bigfoot.
yeah.
That's even.
Well, considering what's been going on, where we are, who's here, and yeah, it's what we're after.
Maybe we'll see him tonight.
Well, you know, every single night the activity gets a little better, and you know, during our campouts, we've had enough of them now to know that as time goes on, every night things get a little better and a little better. So yeah, who knows what's going to happen tonight?
We'll see.
We'll see. Oh boy.